Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we are going to paint this beautiful, colorful bouquet, and if you would like a real-time version of this tutorial, you can find it up now in Critique Club. I'll put a link in the video description so you can find it, and I'd love to see you over there if you would like some more in-depth tutorials. I have dozens and dozens, I think probably about 75 or 76 of them, and also you have the opportunity to upload your work if you are a member of Critique Club so I can see it and review it and give you feedback. So if that's something that sounds good to you, check out the link in the video description. I'm starting off by sketching with watercolor crayons. These are the Neo Color 2 crayons by Caran d'Ache, but I encourage you to use what you have. If you have watercolor pencils, you can use those. If you've got gelatos, gel sticks, gel crayons, anything that would dissolve in water. Inktense blocks would work really well for this too. The reason I want you to try what you have first before going out and buying other media is because you may find a whole new way to use your products. Now I'm throwing down a ruler and I am putting in a horizon line here. It's actually like a table line because I want to have something to kind of situate my bouquet. And then I sprayed it with some water and just kind of let the paint do its thing. Now you could do this whole thing in your water soluble crayons. You could pick up the crayon like a pan of paint if you want to. I'm using my large studio palette. Now I got to tell you, if I have my druthers to paint whenever I want, I would use a large studio palette. Now it's not always practical for YouTube videos because you know, sometimes I want my painting to take up as much space. So if I'm doing a landscape painting, I'm going to zoom in more and I just wouldn't have room to have that whole palette in frame. So using a tin of colors is more convenient, or if traveling, a tin of colors is more convenient, like something smaller. But for my preferences for painting, if I'm not filming, I like to have a large studio palette. This one is filled with my M-Gram paints. I think I have a couple of my Marine Blue colors as well. But I enjoy a palette like this. And I don't see too many people online using them. I think it's probably from the same situation that I mentioned. But if you are starting out and you're buying tube colors, I highly recommend that you go with something with a large mixing space like this. Now, this one runs around $20 now. I think I've had this one for about 20 years. I paid like, I don't know, $15 for it. But for about the same price as a Jones palette, which I have here, you can get a Pike palette. And a Pike palette is made with a better quality plastic, or you can actually get ceramic palettes. So just keep that in mind if you're shopping for a palette, what might suit you better. Now, a ceramic palette is not going to be travelable. So if you like to go and take classes and you want something that you can lug or throw in a tote bag or in a painting box, that's not going to be the best because it's heavy and it could break. Whereas like a Jones or a Pike palette will fit in like a wooden paint box, a typical 16 by 12 wooden paint box. So just kind of consider those things when you're thinking about buying a palette if you're going to do tube paints and make your own palette that way. It's up to you what you get. I started off with a palette like this when I was 7, so it's very familiar to me as well. So as you can see, I have done a combination of spraying and spattering and, you know, splashing down colors. And honestly, I really love the painting at this phase. And the problem with liking your painting really early on is that it will disappoint you, my friends. It'll disappoint you. You'll get to a point where you're like, it started off so well. I had so much potential and so much optimism. And then, well, it's like life, you know, you go through a stage where you're full of optimism and potential and the world is your oyster. You know, think about being in college and your professor's telling you how fantastic you are. And then you get out into the real world and like, what? Nobody wants to hire somebody that's fresh out of college? Oh my gosh. Life is unfair. So, you know, you get the disappointment. Same with the journey of a painting. You get your disappointments and then you push through, you persevere, you keep on keeping on, and then eventually the painting turns around. So keep that in mind. You're gonna have a messy phase. You're gonna have disappointments. You're gonna have a battle. You're gonna struggle. That's part of it. You gotta get through it. Before you get to the juicy goodness of a painting, you've got to struggle. You've got to, if you're not struggling, see, here's the thing. If you're not struggling when you are painting, you're playing it too safe. You're playing it way too safe. And you need to experiment. You need to try new things. Otherwise, you are going to get stale. You're going to plateau. You're going to feel bored. You're going to say, what is this hobby I've been doing? Why am I painting? I'm not leveling up. I'm not reaching that next level. You've got to take risks to reach the next level in painting and in a lot of things, but especially in painting. And the great thing about taking a risk when you're painting is, what are you risking? You're risking a little bit of paint. You're risking a piece of paper, maybe a canvas, probably not a canvas. You're painting over a canvas. Heck, even if the watercolor painting is no good. And I'm working on Arches paper, so I know that's not cheap. Even if this painting is no good and I don't like it, I could gesso over this because it's going to be a pretty flat surface. I could put on a coat of gesso and I could do an acrylic painting or even an oil painting over it. Arches sells oil painting paper now, which is, I think, they're cotton paper that's been primed for oil. So it's really not a big risk. So please take those risks and push yourself and see what you can create. Now, I'm loosely using a reference photo here. It's from Unsplash, and I really like the colors in it, and I like the textures of the different flowers, and that's where I started. But then once I got that basic sketch in, I pretty much stopped looking at the reference photo and just started doing my thing. And, the more you're comfortable, say, painting flowers and glass and things like that, the more you can break away from the reference photos. You could start with a reference photo and then go your own way, do your own thing, and make it your own. When you're a beginner, you may want to rely on the reference photos a little bit more, or if you're going for realism, you'll definitely want to have either a bouquet in front of you or a reference photo, just because it's very hard to do realistic work without having a good reference, because our memories are only so good. Our memories are an impression, and they're also colored by our experience and our preferences and our feelings and our attitude at the moment. If you're in a bad attitude, if you're frustrated, that frustration will show in your work, especially if you're working impressionistically or intuitively. Whereas you could be aggravated, but if you've got a good reference photo, you could be following that reference photo and come up with something pretty darn good. So just kind of keep that in mind. If you're feeling frustrated and it's just you're not able to push past that point of frustration in your artwork, then take a break, let it dry. Go walk around the block, go do 25 jumping jacks, go sip a cup of tea and look out the window, do something to give your eyes a break. Sometimes you've just been staring at something for so long you can't see how it really looks. It might be beautiful and you can't even tell. I was actually pretty perturbed with this painting at the end of it because I had that so much potential at the beginning that I was really liking, and then it didn't live up to my expectations. But I was also working very intuitively, so I didn't really know where I wanted to end up either. So it's just kind of one of those lessons that hopefully I can pass on to you, and you won't get frustrated, or you won't get as frustrated. Or when you do get frustrated, you're going to say, oh, wait a minute, Lindsay told me this was going to happen. I need to go have a cup of tea and look out the window, watch the birds at the feeder, and then I'll come back and I'll feel better. Or I need to go take the dog for a walk and then I'll come back and I'll feel better. I got to be careful if I say that because my dog is napping across the room, and if she hears that, she's going to want to go for one. But, yeah, give yourself a break, especially if it's something you don't have to finish if you're painting intuitively, you're probably painting for your enjoyment, and it's not something you have to get done at a certain amount of time. So give yourself, the space to learn and the space to grow. Don't pressure yourself that everything has to be a masterpiece, because you know what? If you're taking risks and you're on a path of growth and you're on a journey to grow as an artist, you are going to make big ol' messes, and that's part of it. And you have to make sure that you're not worried about wasting an expensive piece of paper or expensive paint. And I get a lot of controversy over this comment that I'm going to tell you, this thing I'm going to tell you here, by other artists, because a lot of other artists and a lot of other teachers will say you should only use the best quality supplies. The thing is, for some people, that's true. For some people, I've had students that they don't even want to sit down at the table unless they have the most professional paints and the most professional paper. They will psych themselves out and say, it's going to be junk if I don't work with the most expensive professional paper. Fine. If that's the way you look at it, you should have the most professional paper, because you're going to, if you come up with any struggle, you're going to blame your materials. So you might as well start off with the best if that's your way of thinking. And there's nothing wrong with that way of thinking. I'm not, definitely don't want to shame anybody that's trying to grow their skills as an artist. But if you are so worried to put a brushstroke down because the paper was kind of on the expensive side and you can't afford to replace it, go with cheaper paper. Give yourself a break. There are some really good, cheaper brands out there that, when you're learning, will not hinder you. You need to get to a certain level, I think, to outgrow certain papers. So one paper that I really like for beginners and for teaching and for practicing, like practicing your brush strokes and whatnot, is the Fabriano Studio paper. Now, the reason I really like this is you can get a big pad. It's like, they call it a block. It's not really a block. It's like 50 sheets of 140 pound or 75 sheets of 90 pound for like $25 in 9 by 12, and like they also make 11 by 14, and I think it's around $30. But you've got so many fresh starts with that. You've got so many opportunities to explore and to grow. And yes, the paper is not as good as Arches. It's 25% cotton though, and it's not bad. You're not going to be able to scrub and lift as well, but we're not really scrubbing and lifting in an exercise like this. We are splashing, we are spraying, we are layering, but we're not doing any really aggressive techniques to this paper. If you're practicing brush strokes, if you're doing loose florals, stuff like that is going to be fine on this paper. If you're also a card maker and you like to rubber stamp and then watercolor, it's perfect, especially the hot press. In fact, when I'm teaching workshops like at stamp conventions and we're going to be doing some watercolor techniques in stamping, I use the Fabriano 90-pound hot press because you're going to be layering that on other things. It's so smooth and it takes your paint so well, as long as you're not working in too many layers or you're not scrubbing or doing any, more abrasive techniques. So there are lots of papers like that. Even Canson XL, which is a very affordable paper. It's not quite as robust as a Fabriano Studio, but it's very easy to find. You can get it at like Walmart even. You're practicing brush strokes. You're doing some quick sketches. Give yourself a break. Give yourself a paper that you're not going to be afraid to experiment with. Now, I'm not saying don't ever buy Arches. You've done a few studies. You're, practicing. You're ready to tackle that portrait of your pet or your child, or maybe a painting of your house, or a beautiful photograph that you took on vacation of a gorgeous landscape. Break out the Arches then. Break out the more expensive paper then. And you will notice a huge difference, because what's happened is you have built your skills. And when you see what you've done with your skills, when you switch up to better quality materials, when you've been practicing all along, you're going to see a big jump in your ability, in your skills. So you've been practicing, you've been working on that cheap paper, and it's going pretty well. You get out a piece of Arches and you do that same painting on the Arches, you're going to feel like you've leveled up, and you're going to see that improvement where it wouldn't be as a parent if you started on Arches, and you might even feel timid and grow slower because you're afraid of wasting the expensive paper. So just give yourself a break. If that's keeping you from creating, then just get some cheaper paper, get some cheaper paints if that's what keeping you from creating. I will say though, professional paints, as far as an investment, they're going to last you a long time. If you put your paint in a palette like I have here, or whatever type of palette you prefer, and you let it dry, and then you pick it up with the wet brush, that paint wears very slowly, and you're going to get a lot more pigment from your brush. Now, honestly, if you're going with student grade paint or you're going with professional paint, you're paying the same amount for the pigment that you're getting. It's just the student paint seems more affordable because it's got a lot of extenders and fillers and brighteners, and it may be using cheaper pigments as well. So that's how they can get away with charging less for student grade or budget grade paint. And a lot of the budget grade paints might have pigments that are going to fade on you. So if you're practicing, it's not that big of a deal unless it's really chalky and it's, you can't do the techniques that you want to do. That's where I would say, yeah, if you can't do the techniques you need to learn, then that would be a problem. But I would say any student grade paint from a brand name that you recognize is probably going to suit you fine. Any of the brands that have been around your whole life, they're going to be fine. But I will also say that, yeah, it's a sticker shock when you buy a tube of M. Graham, or M. Graham just happens to be my favorite, or Winsor & Newton or Daniel Smith. They're all great brands. Any of those brands are good. Any of those professional brands are great. It's going to be a bit of a sticker shock, but that tube is going to last you a lot longer. So if you have the money to splash out to begin with, then fine, go for it. But if not, there's nothing wrong with learning with student grade paints. I did. Actually the paints that I learned on were Marie's watercolors, but they were better than the Marie's that they're selling today. They were the Chinese colors. They had, I got them back it was early 80s. They were at Martin's and my mom picked them up because I was starting to take watercolor lessons, and my teacher said they were fine. They dried down great in my palette. They didn't pop off like the modern Marie's paints. I would highly recommend avoiding those. They are not very good anymore. I don't know about the China colors, but the ones that you find at like your department stores, Christmas tree shops, stuff like that, those are junk. I would not go for those unless you want to squeeze them out fresh from the tube every time. And in that case, you're going to use them up so fast that you'd be better off going with pretty much anything else anyway. But I started with those. I still have the first 3 brushes that my mom bought me when I was taking classes. So your supplies are going to last. My palette lasted for about 20 years, and then I replaced it with the Jones one because it was just getting brittle and falling apart. And it's the same plastic as my Jones palette is, and it's already starting to crack on the lid and whatnot. So I'm kind of thinking about not refilling my paints and just trying to use them all up. And then I have a Pike palette going too, and then just switching over to that, but that's terribly yellowed because I got it secondhand in the 90s and it's like really yellowed. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Just saying that good supplies will last you longer, but don't be afraid of trying something a little more affordable. Now here what I'm doing is I'm using some gouache and I'm adding in some highlights because at this point I'm like, oh, I don't know. I'm not like... I'm feeling a little disappointed with where it's at right now. I think it's gotten a little too decorative looking, maybe like that rose that's just kind of like smack dab in the middle. I should have had that it's a little off center, but it's not off center enough for me. Although with the triad of the other two roses, it is balanced out pretty well, but I was just kind of, I don't know. I just wasn't that keen on it right now. But so I'm like, I'm going to put the highlights in and then see what I need for more color. And I realized that once I got those highlights in, I really just wanted to loosen up the flowers on the bottom. And I guess I wanted to keep that flower as my focal point and everything in that plane as kind of in focus. So like the edge of the jar, that flower, some of the closer flowers, but those really close to us flowers at the bottom, those two roses lying on the table, I'm like, those will look better if they get blurry and just start to kind of dribble off into the ether. And then I thought also maybe even some more splashiness in the background so that I have these different levels of soft edges and hard edges. I have a lot of soft edges from those spatters originally. I'd like some kind of intermediate splashes that aren't like really hard edge and bold, but are more defined in the splashes in the background. And also just this kind of like ethereal diffused color around my flowers in the bottom, because I'm painting intuitively. It's like, what does this need? That needs almost a frame of color. So by doing that at the bottom, I give it weight. I give it a little bit of a frame. I take some of the focus away from those flowers that weren't really drawn that expertly. I kind of rushed it and I should have spent more time. I should have looked at my reference more, instead of just kind of jumping in, because I wanted to have fun and splash paint around. But all in all, I do like the way it came out. I did grab some markers, those brush pens there, and I went in to get some deeper values in between the folds of the rose. And you can do that with watercolor paint too. I just knew those markers would be real direct and I could see how I like it. And I did end up going in with a little bit more paint on top of it because I'm like, those markers are not going to be light fast and I don't want this painting to fade away into the ether. It's a changeable art that just fades away. It's like Banksy, Why is it bad when I do it, but it's great when Banksy does it? He makes $1 million. My painting fades on the wall, I'm going to get sued. Or probably not, but I would have to give my money back if I sold it, probably, depending on how much I sold it for, I guess. But there you have it. I mean, it was a lot of fun to paint. I hope you sense the joy in this piece and it inspires you to grab your supplies, whatever you happen to have, and play with them and see what happens, because that's where the art is, friends. Have fun with it. And if you want to see this in real time, go check out Critique Club. I'll have a link in the video description. It's only $5 a month and it gives you access to, tons and tons, like 75, 76 full tutorials that I think you'd enjoy. Thanks for watching. Until next time, happy crafting.